All right, welcome everybody. So it's about to be Hanukkah. So I should have had the Adam Sandler thing ready to roll in. What is Hanukkah songs? So I guess we could look at the some of the halachot regarding Hanukkah, but I can tell you most of Hanukkah is just minhagim, not actually halacha. So when you hear people saying, "Oh, we have to load from the right to the left, but we light from the left to the right," does everybody do it that way? Does it have to be done that way? Do we all light one? Can we light for the rest of the members of our family? So I kind of went through the Mishneh Torah and looked at it's only like two chapters. So we can pull that up. Share screen. All right, here we're already on Chabad. So let's look up where is our search bar for Chabad? There it is. Hilhot, Hanukkah. Probably misspelling it. It'll find it. Okay, Megillah ve Hanukkah. I think it starts on chapter 3. How do we minimize this? Oh, there it is. Okay. I have the physical copy here, which has got some interesting commentary on it. I was looking up last night. There are people who make the claim that for sure historically the revolt happened, the Maccabean revolt, but did the miracle actually happen? There's an argument to be made that that was something that they added later and attributed to it. I've never read the first and second book of Maccabees, but allegedly it claims that the first book doesn't mention the miracle of the light lasting all week, but the second book does. But that second book was written like 40 or 50 years later. So there's some people out there that say that this was instituted by the rabbis to make the holiday more special and to give it more meaning. Um, so I mean, how can you prove it either way? But there's an academic argument to be made for it, and it kind of comes out a little bit in the commentary here. But if you want to take that position, that's fine. If you want to believe that it happened exactly as described, also fine. I mean, it's a tradition that's been around for a long time. But I want to tell you most of what we're doing for this holiday is minhag and not actual halacha. So let's see if we can separate some of it. And it's surprisingly as thorough as Mishneh Torah is, the only complete codification of halacha we have, it's pretty vague on a lot of it. So then you have to go to the Shulchan Aruch, which chronologically comes later, to give you a lot of the customs that the Mishneh Torah is kind of silent on. Anybody want to read the first halakha here? So I'll do it then. In the era of the Second Temple, so for anyone that is not sure chronologically the order of things, this is Hanukkah is not one of the major holidays. It's not biblical. It's not in the Torah. This is over 1,000 years later. So that's why it's not elevated to the level of things like Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Pesach, the things that are biblically mandated. So this is a little bit before the Common Era, about 160 years before the Common Era, in the era of the Second Temple. This is when the Greek kingdom issued decrees against the Jewish people, attempting to nullify their faith and refusing to allow them to observe Torah and its commandments. They extended their hands against their property and their daughters. This is going to be important here. The role of women in this. This is going to come up. They entered the sanctuary, wrought havoc within, and made the sacraments impure. See, this is kind of vague. Like, what does this actually mean? We'll explain this in a minute. The Jews suffered great difficulties from them, for they oppressed them greatly until the God of our ancestors had mercy upon them, delivered them from their hand, and saved them. So this is talking about the revolt that we won. The sons of the Hasmoneans, the high priests, overcame them, slew them, and saved the Jews from their hand. They appointed a king from the priests, and sovereignty returned to Israel for more than 200 years until the destruction of the second temple. So notice is pointing out the Hasmoneans. This was actually sort of a civil war between different groups of Jews. So let's rather than going through every sentence which has a commentary to it, I'm just going to read the commentary here in order. So here, the Hanukkah miracle took place in 165 before the Common Era. The Greek persecutions began several years before then. More particularly, when it says Greeks, it's referring to the Seleucid kingdom of Syria, whose ruling hierarchy was of Greek origin. The Greeks would have, according to Bereshit Rabbah, uh, relates that the Greeks would have the Jews right on the horn of an ox, that they have no portion in the God of Israel. Megillat Antiochos, which relates that the Greeks prevented the Jews from observing the Sabbath and performing circumcision. In this era, Greek rulers established Gentile cities in Eretz Israel and deprived the Jewish population of its livelihood. Rashi makes the claim that the Greeks ordained that before a Jewish virgin was married, she was required to share intimacy with a Greek officer. So is this something that Rashi came up with, or is this something that was passed down from before that he's bringing up? Either way, this is in part why it's going to be important. We're going to see for women, they play a more significant role in this holiday than one might think. The Greeks, as we find with regard to the oil for the menorah, the Greeks did not destroy the oil. They made it impure. I guess this is what this is referring to here. Herein, there is a lesson regarding the nature of the conflict between the Greeks and the Jews. The Greeks were not anxious to stamp out Judaism entirely. Uh, they could have killed us all militarily if they wanted to, but they didn't. They were prepared to accept Judaism as one of the cultures of the Mediterranean area, which they would incorporate into an all-encompassing collection of knowledge and values. The sacraments of Judaism would remain, but they would become impure, tainted by Greek culture. By calling attention to the divine origin of the Jews' victory before mentioning the Hasmoneans, the Rambam emphasizes the miraculous and spiritual nature of the miracle. The valiant struggle of the Hasmoneans, who were able to defeat the most powerful armies of the world with guerrilla forces, is recounted in many sources. There are significant statements beyond the laws of Hanukkah. There are many rabbinic authorities who are highly critical of the Hasmoneans for assuming the kingship of the Jewish people. Although Rambam writes the King David's descendants have an eternal right to the monarchy in Jerusalem, his description here of the Hasmoneans as kings does not have the slightest intimation of criticism. If anything to the contrary is true, several laws of the nature of the kingship are derived from the Hasmonean kings and others, even from the kings of Herod's dynasty who ruled after them. Okay, I think that's all the commentary on the first halakha. So on the second one, when the Jews overcame their enemies and destroyed them, they entered the sanctuary. This was on the 25th of Kislev. They could not find any pure oil in the sanctuary, with exception of a single cruse. It contained enough oil to burn for merely one day. They lit the arrangement of lights from it for 8 days until they could crush olives and produce pure oil. So I've heard before, like you had already said, they didn't destroy the oil, they just purified it. So there was oil there. I've also heard that one of the reasons was they had to leave the land to get olives to make the oil and bring it back, and then it took a certain amount of time to produce it. Let's see what the commentary says here. The commentaries raise the question, why was the miracle of the cruse of oil necessary? With regard to the communal offerings, in which category falls the kindling of the menorah. We follow the rule that the requirement for ritual purity is suspended if it is impossible to bring an offering in purity. Thus, if the cruse of pure oil had burned out, the Jews could have used impure oil. Why did God perform a miracle when there was no absolute necessity? Among the explanations, this right here tells you there's more than one explanation, more than one tradition, more than one story being passed around. Among the explanations for this is that God saw the dedication of the Jewish people as evidenced by their search for pure oil, and in a greater sense, by their entire struggle against the Greeks. This commitment, which extended beyond the limits of their intellect, evoked a miracle from God that transcended the limits of nature. Until they could crush olives and produce pure oil. This fact also provokes the question, why did it take so long to produce pure olive oil? Although there is an obligation to use oil of the finest quality for the menorah, when there is no other alternative, inferior oil prepared for the menorah is also acceptable. Seemingly, it would have been possible to produce oil from olives in the Jerusalem vicinity in less than 8 days. So, somebody was talking about the other day, they were saying that they're talking to their children about Santa. And I'm just like, I'm in favor of not teaching your children about that. I mean, I understand it's like fun and for little kids, but then at some point you have to tell them, hey, it's not real. We lied to you. So did that happen here? Did people make up this story about why the lights, the miracle, not about while people are being killed, that all the miracles that could have happened, but just that it lasted for 8 days to make it part of a story, to make it, more kid friendly. Also, like we just read, during the times of the Greeks, we weren't allowed to do things like read Torah. So it's often taught that the dreidel comes from there, but that was also a later invention. The dreidels that we have comes from like the 16th century. Um, it spells an acronym on them. So if you're in Israel, it'll say a great miracle happened here. But the acronym outside of Israel is a great miracle happened there. And the story is told that Jews were not allowed to study Torah, not allowed to practice the religion, so they would play with the dreidel. So when the Greek soldiers would come by, they would say, "Look, we're not doing anything Jewish. We're just playing a game. We're gambling here." But that dreidel didn't actually come about until much, much later. But the story of not doing Jewish things and well, we're just playing with a dreidel is a way of telling the story, and probably in areas where you weren't allowed to be openly doing Jewish things, where the populations were more hostile towards us. But that legend of the dreidel being an actual object from the time of the Greeks, that was something that was attributed to it, um, with good intention to tell the story of what was happening during the times of the Greeks, where we were not allowed to do things. But the actual dreidel, I don't think we were playing with dreidels in the times of the Greeks. I think what should be told instead is this is where the Haftorah comes from. Because we were not allowed during the time of the Greeks, we were not allowed to read the Torah portion, the Parsha. That's where we would read some other things from the books of the prophets, so the theme would match. If you were on Shemot reading about the Exodus, because you weren't allowed to read that in the Torah from the time of the Greeks, we would instead pick some other portion in Nach, from the prophets where somebody's leaving from here to there. So the theme would be the same. So you could remember the Torah, but you couldn't read the actual Torah. And that kind of got merged with the dreidel story, but the dreidel wasn't invented until much later. So as we're seeing here, there's people that are questioning some of the reasons for this. Why is this the case? Did they, I mean, for sure, historically the revolt happened, but did they attribute the story of it being a miraculous amount of oil that lasted longer than what's natural? Was that made up later? There's an argument for it. I'm not saying you have to question it. This is not something like Santa where you can disprove. So, I mean, it's perfectly fine to teach that it was a miracle, but there are people who question it, and I don't begrudge them. I think we should be questioning everything. Okay. Halakha 3. According to the sages of that generation, they ordained that these 8 days, which begin from the 25th of Kislev, should be commemorated days of happiness and praise. Candles should be lit in the evening at the entrance to the houses on each and every one of these 8 nights to publicize and reveal the miracle. These days are called Hanukkah. It's forbidden to eulogize and fast on them as on the days of Purim. Lighting candles on these days is a rabbinic mitzvah, like the reading of the Megillah. Now, we define a mitzvah as a Torah commandment. So, this is why he puts rabbinic mitzvah here, because this is not something that's in the Torah, because it's chronologically much later. So the question comes up in the Baracha, how do we say God commanded us to do this, to light this, or, to read the Megillah when he didn't? So the answer that's given is that there are Torah commandments, that we have the mitzvah of lo tasor, not to stray to the left or the right of the rulings of the court. That would be the Sanhedrin. So to comply with that, you need to not stray from the rulings. And one of their rulings is that they ordained these 8 days should be commemorated. There's another Torah commandment that says, do according to all that they instruct you. So they have instructed you here in this generation that we're supposed to be commemorating this. So this is an event that we're commemorating, so that it's not blotted out from our memory. This was not later rabbis coming up with this. This was Shabbat 21b states that the celebration of the holiday was ordained in the year following the miracle. So this is somewhere between 160 and 167 before the Common Era. This predates the Mishneh. So for sure, this is the Tanaim. These are the sages that had the smicha going back to Moshe Rabbeinu. These are the ones that the generation that formed the Sanhedrin. So this is what gave them the authority. So commemorating this holiday, for sure, this is halakha. Why do they call it a mitzvah? Because you're complying with the mitzvot from the Torah that tells us to listen to these sages, not just what your rabbi says today. You have to do this, you have to light it that way. That's minhag, which we're going to see. But commemorating this actual holiday, this is actual halakha. But notice when they're calling it a mitzvah, he's highlighting that this is a rabbinic one. So it's not from the Torah. It's just that the Torah is telling us to listen to these specific people, which really makes it halakha, which the Torah commandments tell us to follow the halakha. So it might be splitting hairs to point out that he's using the word mitzvah versus halakha, but it's a distinction, in my opinion, worth making. Okay, whoever is obligated to read the Megillah is also obligated to kindle the Hanukkah lamp. On the first night, a person lighting the lamp recites 3 blessings. They are, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with the commandments and has commanded us to light the Hanukkah lamp, who wrought miracles for our ancestors, and who has granted us life and sustained us. So these are the 3 that you're going to make on the first night. I'm going to skip a lot of the second half of this because it just talks about the different minhagim, about reciting Hallel. But because this is vague on a lot of it, I went through the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which gives you more clarity on the minhagim that that Rambam doesn't discuss here. And in there, I found something pretty interesting about. It says here, um, who wrought the miracles for our ancestors. Now we know, according to Rambam, in Asuri Bia, chapter 12, halakha 17, says there is no difference between a convert and a native born. There's no difference. In fact, there's a famous letter of somebody who wrote Rambam saying, "Can we say that, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they are our forefathers? We don't have a biological relationship to them because we converted." And Rambam says, for sure, you are 100% allowed to say that. And he actually praised, I think his name was Obadia, the convert. He says, because you have no connection to him, you chose to join us. You have a stronger connection than me being Rambam who's saying that, which is a good point because even today, if you converted, then we know you converted. To say you're a native born, you only go back a couple generations, and there we see somebody claims to be a native born within the last couple generations, but there's more of a doubt there than there is for a convert because a convert we can prove we saw you go into the mikvah, so there's no doubt that you converted in that situation. But this is brought up in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is later. It specifically points out a convert needs to make sure that he says our forefathers. So it takes the wording. With somebody coming in, I don't see you on the screen, so I don't see if anyone's talking or not.
No, it's okay. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I woke up late. Hey,
you.
man,
Me
my,
too.
my, my new talus came in. I want to show you, but go ahead.
Yeah. All right, we're recording, so we'll do the show and tell after.
All right, all right.
So when we get to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, we see that they're doing something that Rambam does not. They're specifically pointing out that converts need to say something different than native borns. We're against that type of thing here. So when a person who did not recite the blessing on his own Hanukkah lamp sees the lamp, he should recite the latter two blessings on the first night. On subsequent nights, a person who kindles the lamp should recite two blessings, and one who sees the lamp should recite one. For the blessing, the Shehecheyanu is recited only on the first night because that's not just for the first time you do something. This also applies like if you haven't seen a friend for a year, then you should also recite this when you see them. So you haven't celebrated Hanukkah this year since you did last year. It's been a year. So it's kind of like the first time you do something. It merits reciting this. Okay, 5. On each and every one of these 8 days, the entire Hallel is recited. Before its resuscitation, one should recite the blessing, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to complete the Hallel. This applies whether the recitation is individual or communal. Even though the reading of Hallel is a mitzvah ordained by the sages, one may recite the blessing stating, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us, as one recites a blessing for reading the Megillah and for the erection of an eruv. A blessing should be recited for every definite obligation established by our sages. In contrast, if an obligation was established by the sages because of a doubt, tithing demai, a blessing is not recited. This is a demai, untithed seeds. I think this is the debate about this was if they were defiled or something. Do you say a baracha on it? We'll look that up. Why is a blessing recited over the second day of the festival? Its observance was ordained only because of a doubt. Lest this ordained, lest it be treated with disdain. So this is the explanation of Hashem has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us. He didn't command us regarding this. This is the explanation that he commanded us to follow the sages of that generation being the one that had the authority, the Sanhedrin. And so you're complying with the Torah mitzvot to comply with what that generation, what those sages ordained us that we do. And
May
there's,
I add something to the Hallel?
yes,
Because I'm currently going through the laws of women's prayer from Pninei Halacha. Um, and the Hallel is not mandatory for women, it says, because it's time bound.
right,
And if you're Sephardi, you don't make a bracha on the Hallel.
right. In
Do you
general,
agree?
in general, there's a halakhic principle that women are exempt from positive time-bound mitzvot. But we're going to see there's an argument here made why Hanukkah is an exception to that. Remember in the beginning, we said here they extended their hands and their property and their daughters. And then Rashi made a claim that the Jewish women were violated by the Greek soldiers before they were married to their Jewish husbands. So for this reason, they took part in the miracle. So the miracle there would be the victory, not the fact that oil lasted longer. So this is not like one of the miracles that women just were sidelined for. They had an active role in in getting freedom from that. So that's why they included them in saying halal here. But as we're going to see, I think from here to the rest of this chapter, there's debate on this. What do you say? Are you required to say it? So, in general, I agree with the halakhic principle that women are exempt from time-bound positive mitzvot. This is more halacha rather than a mitzvot anyway. But they do make an inclusion for women on this for Hanukkah. So, as we're going to see, almost everything about this halal hill is just minhagim. So you can look either way on it. Does that answer your question? Basically, you have the freedom
Yeah.
to view this however you want, and you won't be considered.
Yeah, well, yes, technically yes, but I mean, there's a halachic framework or a minhag, so
Right, and that's the
I'm
difference
asking.
between minhag and halachot. And there's so many opinions. This is just minhag, which I'll show you as we go through it. There's every imaginable opinion on this, so you can pick any of them, and you can go by whichever one makes sense to you. Let's see, we're on halakha 5. Let me see if I missed any interesting commentary here. 23 said, whoever is obligated to read the Megillah is also obligated to kindle the Hanukkah lamp. So this is, and we know women can fulfill their obligation. They're obligated to hear the Megillah, so this applies to them, all adult men and women. Similarly, there's an obligation upon parents to train their children in observance of this mitzvah. So keep that in mind. Even children should be partaking in this. Okay, then okay. Although Hanukkah is a mitzvah that is dependent on a specific time, so this would give you the time bound portion of the positive time bound mitzvot, which usually exempts women. Although Hanukkah is a mitzvah that is dependent on a specific time, women are obligated because they were also included in the miracle. As mentioned in Halacha 1, the Greeks' decrees affected them, and they also had a share in the military victory. For one of the Greeks' commanders was slain by a woman, Yehudit. And that's all it says here. But the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch goes into the commentary there. It talks about um, the woman gave a Greek general cheese so that he would become thirsty and so that he would drink wine. And so he did and became drunk. So then she decapitated him and brought the head of the general out. And then all the soldiers saw, well, if it was the general or if he's dead, then let's stop the war, something like that. So this is where the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch claims that the tradition of eating dairy on Hanukkah comes from. So latkes with like sour cream, that's where they claim that comes from. So women have significant roles in it. So again, we're going to see where women are exempted from these things, but I think they should be included. Okay. Although the mitzvah of kindling the Hanukkah lights was ordained by the sages, it is proper to praise God who commands us, as explained in chapter 1. Um, this blessing is also recited in commemoration of the Purim miracles. Okay. Let's see. It's not the resuscitation of Hallel on Hanukkah alone that is a rabbinic ordinance, but rather at all times. On all the days that the complete Hallel is recited, the obligation to do so is a rabbinic ordinance. There are 18 days of the year when it's a mitzvah to recite the entire Hallel. There are the 8 days of Sukkot, 8 days of Hanukkah, the first day of Pesach, the holiday of Shavuot. Hallel is not recited on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, since they are the days of repentance, awe, and fear, and are not days of extra celebration. The sages did not ordain the resuscitation of Hallel on Purim because the reading of the Megillah serves as that purpose. In places, this is the diaspora, where the festivals are celebrated for 2 days, it's recited on 21 days, 9 days of Sukkot, 8 days of Hanukkah, first 2 days of Pesach, and 2 days of Shavuot. Okay, and here is where you just go through all the different traditions of how to read Hallel. So you're dealing with just a manner of minhag here. There are places which follow this custom. This custom was recited. So this I don't really find very interesting. So that's why I don't really want to go through all this. But we understand there's different minhagim on reciting Hallel. So you can pick any of them. All right, let's go to the next chapter. Okay. So how many people have heard that there's a specific way that we have to light the candles on Hanukkah? There's one opinion from the debate between, I think it was Hillel and Shammai, that you light all of them on the first night and diminish each night. And then I think it was Hillel that said we do the opposite. You light one on the first night, and then you add an additional one each night so that we're increasing the light. And that's what we ended up going by. So who lights? Is it the man of the house? Is it the woman of the house? Is it everyone in the house? Does one light for everybody? Does everyone light their own? Anybody care to take a guess?
I guess everybody lights their own, because it's fun, so everybody can get in on the mix. Me personally, I light one. But actually, I light the shamash first, and then I take the shamash and I light from the right to the left. Beginning on the first night I light one, and then I light two the second night, etc.
Yeah, so it's all of the above answers are correct. And I like that you brought up that it's fun. Because I was at the synagogue once and there was a lady there with her. It was a conservative synagogue. She was there with her, she had like 3 kids, and they were lighting all 8 of them on the first night.
Hey, I got candles, and then I also got a big oil lamp menorah where I got my own wicks, and I set my wicks down in there.
Yeah, I'm going to show you that too. There's a diagram in here that shows that. But they're teaching minhagim there as if it's halachot, and
I just used the olive oil, and it burns real clean.
so they're teaching, you have to load from the right to the left, but you light from the left to the right, and all of this has to be done this way, like you're violating something if you do it differently. As if There was no other opinions, and this is the way it has to be done. So I asked her, you're lighting all of them on the first night, and she's like, yeah, it's just kids, what am I gonna do? Tell them no, they're having fun, just like you mentioned.
And
So
then and then also I say three brachas on the first night, all three, and then for the following nights I just say the two brachas.
right. So a lot of people will say we have to now keep in mind this was a conservative synagogue before Chabad moved into town. So some were more orthodox and they were more strict about it, and some were more reform, the least religious. So this lady and her family came to the conservative synagogue because that's what was in town. There was a reform one the next town over, but she brought her family to the conservative one because that was better than going to the next town over to get to the reform. So in a way, it was good because she's moving up to the reform or up to the conservative. But at the same time, uh, what are we going to do? To snap at the kids? No, this is not how we do it here. You need to follow our minhagim. So a lot of Orthodox people are very strict about minhagim. Um, but you can see there's kind of a reason for it because people like on the reform end of the spectrum, they'll just kind of make it a free for all. They're like, yeah, we just do whatever we want. So where do you draw the line? There kind of has to be a line somewhere. What is acceptable and what's not? A different example would be, do you believe the Torah is divine? If God gave us these commandments, the mitzvot, not the rabbinic mitzvot, but the actual mitzvot in Torah, then what could be on a higher level than that? Many in the Reform say, I don't even know if Moses existed. This is just like a culture that we appreciate. And so they don't comply with anything. Forget about minhagim, halachot, Torah commandments. They're just like, no, this is what we do. And Orthodox Jews, you're not the gatekeeper. You don't tell me how to do my Judaism. So where do we draw the lines? So for me, I think the most logical line to draw is that if the commandments came from God, then that's a Torah commandment that needs to be taken very seriously. Halacha needs to be taken seriously. Why? Because the Torah commandment tells us to follow the halacha. This does not mean you say everything, every custom and tradition today is halacha. So we have to know how it functions. And then minhagim, we're very respectful of, but it's not the same thing. So if somebody is lighting them in a different direction from right to left instead of left to right, that's a different minhag. What are you going to do? Make this not fun for the kids. You're going to embarrass these people and say, this is not how we do it here. We do it this way. Okay, but this is not the only way it can be done. In fact, we're going to see there's examples of people doing the exact opposite in rabbinic literature of what you're claiming has to be done here in this synagogue. So there has to be some kind of a meet in the middle. You know, you can love and support something without just following blindly. And so I don't think when some rabbi says, "Well, this is how we do it here," that this represents all of Judaism, and anybody doing it differently is wrong. Especially when it comes to enforcing your minhag on a higher level as things like halacha and Torah commandments. So there's different ways of doing it, and we're going to see how many different ways there are. Okay, so how many should one light on Hanukkah? The mitzvah, again, this is really more of a halacha, not an actual mitzvah, unless you're describing it as a rabbinic mitzvah to comply, a Torah commandment telling you to comply with the halacha. Is that a single candle should be lit in each and every house, regardless of whether there are many members of the household or merely one person lives there. That's pretty much the law. A person who performs this mitzvah in a beautiful and conscientious manner should light candles for every member of the household, whether male or female. A person who is even more conscientious in his performance, we're going to see later, it could be her performance of the mitzvah, than this and observes the mitzvah in the most desirable manner, should light candles. Are they required to, or just that it's a good idea to? Should light candles for every member of his household, a candle for each individual, whether male or female, on the first night. On each subsequent night, he should add a candle for each of the members in the household. Okay, so he's saying here that everyone in the household gets their own candle, not on the same Hanukkah. You would have each have your own Hanukkah, and there would be one candle for each of them. And he'll make it more clear here. What does the above imply? When there are 10 members of a household on the first night, one lights 10 candles. On the second night, 20. On the third night, 30. Until the eighth night, one lights 80 candles. So it sounds like one person is lighting for everyone in the household. It's common custom. So he's talking about custom here. And look what we have right here. Minhag, customs and tradition. So just custom in all of our cities in Spain that a single candle is lit for all the members of the household on the first night. We proceed to add a new candle on each and every night until the eighth night. 8 candles are lit. So right here, he's showing you there's a custom of not having 80 candles on the eighth night for all 10 people in the household. It's just one candle, which covers all the people in your household. And we're finding this here in Mishneh Torah. So this is an acceptable way to do it. If you want to just have one Hanukkah, one candle for the entire household. So on the first night, you would have one candle plus the shamash, the helper candle, for a total of 2 candles, but just one candle per person. We proceed to add a new candle until the eighth night. 8 candles are lit. This practice is followed regardless of whether there are many members of the household or only one man is lighting the candles. We're going to see in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch where it's going to say the opposite. Instead of one man lighting the candle, it's going to be one woman. The woman of the household is going to follow this minhag, and she's going to light the candle for everybody in the household. So the man doesn't even participate. The woman is going to be doing the lighting. So this just goes to show you it, whether it's one candle for everybody or everybody has their own candle. Does everybody light? Is it the man who lights for everyone? Is it the woman who lights for everyone? We're all dealing right here with minhagim. The halakha is to commemorate this holiday, to publicize the miracle. That's about it. How you proceed with it is all just a matter of minhagim. So how can we shame somebody and tell them you're doing it wrong? How dare you let your kids, your young children, light all 8 of them on the first night because they don't want to hold these candles and only see one lit. They want to participate and they want to see it bright. How can you shame them and say they're doing it wrong? It's just a tradition. They're publicizing the miracle, which means they're complying with the halakha. If we go into the commentary here, which I probably will, it'll show you where, remember, we said women are obligated to participate in this, even though it's a positive time-bound mitzvah. They're usually exempt from. Here, they're supposed to be participating in it. What about the children? There's opinions both ways. Children are exempt from it. And there's an opinion in here that says if you're following this custom of lighting for everyone in the candle, everyone in the household, you do not light for girls that are children. You light for the boys that are children, and then the adult males and females, but you exempt the female children. Then there's another opinion that comes in and says you don't do that. You're supposed to be teaching them because they're going to be obligated on this mitzvah at bat mitzvah age. So you have to include them because you're teaching them the importance of it so that they do it. There is literally every imaginable opinion. Do you include them? Do you not include them? At what age? Do they light? Do you light? Does she light? Do you all light? Does one person, whether it's the father or the mother, light for everyone? You can divide this into an incredible amount of opinions. So you can literally follow any of them because it's just minhagim. So because you can do that, how can you take any of these 12 opinions and say somebody else is wrong for following a different, acceptable, documented opinion that communities were doing? You really can't. So actual halakha publicize the miracle. And we'll get into some people who have a problem with how dare you criticize it how dare you publicize it the way they publicize it. You have to publicize it the way we publicize it or it's invalid. That's a ridiculous opinion, but that's going to be in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Okay, Hanukkah candles should not be kindled before sunset. Instead, they should be kindled at sunset. One should not light later or earlier. And then in the next sentence, it says, should one forget, or even if one purposely did not light at sunset, one may light afterwards until there are no longer any passersby in the marketplace. So you see the language that Rambam gives us here is that you shouldn't do it later or earlier. This is the best time. This is the ideal time. But if you miss it accidentally, or even if you purposely did not do it, you can still do it. The language changes after Mishneh Torah. It gets into it's valid or invalid. So when you're reading these later books and you see valid and invalid, you should interpret that as ideal and less than ideal. But less than ideal is still valid. You'll see in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, they start making everything invalid. If you light it on the floor and then you set it where you're supposed to set it, it's invalid because you didn't light it in the proper place. And then they say, this is the halakha. There's no debate about it. And then the commentary says there's an opinion that says that's incorrect. You're not allowed to move it, while the other one says you can. If it burned for 30 minutes first, then you can move it. Another one says you can move it at any time, no problem. But they're throwing around this word invalid. But this is the language that you find in the Talmud and all throughout Mishneh Torah. What's ideal and what's less than ideal. Things that are less than ideal does not invalidate them, according to Halacha, according to Rambam. This is a later strictness that came up in later books like the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, how long of a duration of time is this? Approximately half an hour. This is where it comes from, where they say you can move it if you lit it and it burned for half an hour, then you can move it. Other people come in and be more strict and say, no, once you light it, it can't move at all. But this is where that half-hour time frame comes from, or slightly more than that. There you go. He's even lenient on the half an hour. Should this time pass, one should not kindle the lights. One should place enough oil in the lamp so that it will continue burning until there are no longer any passersby in the marketplace. Because then who's going to see it? You're not publicizing if there's no one there to see it. If one lit it and it became extinguished, one need not light a second time. If it remained burning there until there are no longer passerby in the marketplace, one may extinguish it or remove it if one desires. While we're here, I'm going to go ahead and open up the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch because I think this is what it was referencing that I found. It was kind of interesting, and I marked mine up so that I could show you. Okay, Laws of Hanukkah starts on page 949. I marked up a couple things. I think this is one of the ones that I pointed out. Okay. So according to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch here, it's a halakhic rule that the act of lighting the menorah creates the mitzvah, which means that the kindling is the essence of the mitzvah. And when you light the menorah, the lights must be in their proper place and must have the proper amount of oil. Accordingly, if you lit them when they were lower than 3 tefakim, 3 handbreadths off the ground, or higher than 20 amos, this is I don't know, second, third floor of like an apartment. Because if you light them up there, it's no good because who's going to see it up there? It's not eye level where the people are going to see it. And if you light them lower or higher than that, and after they were already burning, you place them in their proper place, they are not valid. Meaning if you light it on the floor, then you pick it up and set it where you're supposed to, it's claiming that it's not valid. Commentary there says the poskim have written. Which poskim? What are their names? Who are we talking about here? It doesn't say. Just says the poskim have written that even when the menorah was lit in a proper place, it should not be moved to another proper place until after the candles have burned at least a half an hour. This applies even to the menorah that is lit in the synagogue. Okay, well, it says it's not valid, and this says some anonymous poskim make this claim. But then the next sentence says others are more stringent, maintaining that the menorah should not be moved at all while it's burning, according to the Mishneh Berurah. So the latest book, the Mishneh Berurah, comes along and wants to be more strict than these anonymous poskim who are commenting on the wording of the Shulchan Aruch that says this is invalid. Something that Rambam does not make the claim that that would be invalid. So you see how the language here becomes far more strict. So I don't like how they do that. Where were we? Let me see if there's any interesting commentary on that here in the Mishneh Torah. See, we skipped all the stuff in this chapter on Hallel and went to chapter 4. Um, okay, let me see. Do you guys just see the screen or do you see me? I want to get to where you can see my camera. All right, do you guys see me on the screen or you just see the website? Somebody's got to answer. I don't know what you guys are seeing.
Well, we can switch between the either one, so it depends on the view of the person.
Oh man, I thought I was hidden when I had the website on the screen. You guys could have been staring directly at me the whole time. I didn't even know. All right, so if you're looking at me, let's see if I can get this diagram. This is Mishneh Torah. You see how it shows 1 on the first night, 2 on the second, 3 on the third. This is what they've decided that you do. Hillel said this. Shammai wanted you to light them all on the first one. So we go with Hillel. So you load from the right to the left, but you light from the left to the right. That's the minhag. This is what you'll see so many people enforcing. But then on the very next page, we find some communities are doing this, and this is acceptable. They write halacha about this. It needs to be a finger width in between each one of these candles. So remember, like we were saying, the people that have the customs of each person has their own candle, but you need to make sure it's in a separate Hanukkah. That way, you don't see like 2 people in a household and they both lit one. They think it's the second night when it's really the first. So everyone has their own, and you're not using these candles for any other purpose. So you can't use your Hanukkah candles to, now we have electricity, we have light bulbs. But back then they would use fire as light. So you can't use the Hanukkah candles to see your way around. They're like specifically for this purpose of publicizing the commemoration of Hanukkah.
I have a question on this.
Yeah.
This morning I saw like a thought-provoking post. Somebody posted a picture of like a birthday candle in the Chanukiah, like an 8 for the last day.
Yeah.
Does that count, or does it also say it's not for the purpose of Hanukkah that you use a birthday candle, or can you use literally everything? The form,
Literally
the shape.
everything except a braided candle, because if it's a braided candle, like the big Havdalah candles,
Mm-hmm.
then that's considered to be like a torch. So
Okay.
don't use one of those, but any other type of candle you could use. And like Moshe brought up olive oil that he's using, that's what this is. They'll make these things with oil in it that they could use. You could use oil. Where is that in here? I was talking about the time, the 30 minutes. Okay, so according to this, remember he said that you should light it ideally at sunset, but it's not invalid if it goes longer. So commentary here in the Mishneh Torah says, according to Rambam, after a half an hour past sunset, kindling the candles no longer fulfills a mitzvah. This is commentary. The Rambam just said it's valid. But he brings down that you're not supposed to be doing it after people are no longer in the marketplace, because who are you publicizing it to if there's nobody out there? So that's why he wants it done then, because there's people out there that'll see it. Today, you have people, cars on the road all night long, 24 hours a day, driving around. Restaurants are open, some of them 24 hours a day. So at any point in the night, even more than a half hour after sunset, people can see this, people can see the light that you're publicizing. So this is why Rambam wants it done um, no more than a half hour after sunset, because back then nobody was walking around, nobody would see it after that. So this is where he says it no longer fulfills the obligation. The Ramah, however, states that in the present age, since it is customary to light inside one's house, the essential element of publicizing the Hanukkah miracle is to involve one's own family in the candle lighting. Therefore, one fulfills the mitzvah, according to Ramah, as long as the members of one's household are awake. The Ramah, nevertheless, counsels that at the outset, one should try to adhere to the stricter view. In light of these statements, the common practice of lighting the Hanukkah candles well after nightfall should be examined. Is it correct to refrain willfully from fulfilling the mitzvah in the most desirable manner, and perhaps, according to the Rambam, not to fulfill it at all? So it's asking that question. You can decide for you how you want to do it. There are those who say, again, because the restaurants are open, you could do it all night long. So what about people that work at night? Did you miss your opportunity to light it? No, you can light it when you get home, as long as it's still dark outside, if your family's there. And we're going to see where it specifically says you're supposed to set the candle outside the doorway. And it mentions which side, because the mezuzah is going to be on one side. So your Hanukkah is going to be on the other side, outside of your door. And remember, you can't light it on the floor. It has to be so many tafakim high. And you can't light it above 20 amot, however many stories that is. So it talks about apartment complexes. If you're in that situation, you need to take it outside to the entrance of the apartment, because you can't light it on the 5th floor of your apartment. It needs to be outside at the entrance. So then it talks about how, well, if you set, we're fast forwarding to the Shulchan Aruch here, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It says if you set it outside, like you're supposed to comply with the halakha, but the wind blew it out, if you set it out there knowing it's going to be extinguished by the wind, then you did not fulfill your obligation. But if you set it out there and it got blown out, without your intent for it to be blown out, then you didn't negate your obligation, but it's okay to relight it. Just don't say a barecha when you relight it. Doesn't this seem like a lot of rules? It's got to be outside, and it's invalid if you put it out. To me, if you put it outside, the wind is going to blow it out. So I guess it's saying your intention is not for it to be blown out, therefore you can relight it. But if you, in your mind, put it out there knowing it's going to be extinguished by the wind, then it's invalid the way you're doing it. So why even do it? However, we're going to see in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it says that today, since we live among non-Jews, we're supposed to leave the Hanukkah inside the house. So the halakha is to set it outside, but because we're in the diaspora, you're actually supposed to leave it inside. And as we just saw from the Ramah, it doesn't even matter if you're in a remote area where nobody's going to see it, you're publicizing it to your family. Even if it's more than 30 minutes after sundown, if the only people that see it is your family, you're talking about it, you're teaching this to your family, you're getting them to see the importance of commemorating this. So you're good to go. Why this talk about invalidating it? This is where I think we have to meet people where they are, instead of beating them up and say, no, you have to do it this way. Although I do recognize we can't just let people do whatever they want, because where do you draw the line? And again, I told you where I think the line is: sticking to mitzvot and halacha, because the mitzvot tell us to stick to halacha. Minhagim, as we've discussed in this last 10 or 15 minutes, whatever, there's literally every different tradition on how you do it, which way you want to do it, when you do it, where, every imaginable opinion, and it's all recorded here. So it's acceptable to follow any of them. So I don't think we should be beating people up and making them think they're doing it wrong. The minimum is to commemorate the holiday and publicize the miracle, even if it's just to your family. And it specifically says in times of when it's dangerous to do so, you're not to take any chances. So if you're living in a place that's hostile to Jews, don't be out there shoving it in your neighbor's face. And that's where it even says, because we live among non-Jews, even if they're not hostile, this is how we do it now. Just keep it in your house. I think that's in the Kitzur. So we'll probably come across that and I can show you exactly what it says. All right, where were we? Here we go. It's a mitzvah to place the Hanukkah lamp at the outside of the entrance to one's home. Notice it says outside. Within the handbreadth, that is closest to the doorway on the left side as one enters the home, so that the mezuzah will be on the right side and the Hanukkah lamp on the left side. When a person lives in a second story apartment, he should place the Hanukkah lamp in a window close to the public domain. If a person places a Hanukkah lamp more than 20 cubits above the ground, a cubit is 18 to 24 inches. So it's debatable about what the exact number is, but his actions are of no consequence. What does that mean? It means he didn't fulfill his obligation because the lamp does not attract attention at that height. Did I highlight that here? I did this early this morning while I wasn't really awake. This one I did highlight a couple. 46. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch, when it says the second story, the Shulchan Aruch qualifies this to mean a second story apartment that does not have a private entrance to the public domain or a courtyard. If the apartment has such entrance, the Hanukkah lamp should be lit at that entrance. Okay, so a cubit, 18 to 24 inches. So that's between 30 and 40 feet. I think this is like the third floor and up of apartments here. Then he would not be considered to have fulfilled the obligation. Okay. 51, where is that at? Halakha 8. Okay, the first sentence. In the time of danger, a person may place a Hanukkah lamp inside his house. Even if he lit it on his table, it is sufficient. Okay. Do we need to qualify, are you in danger or not? Shabbat 21b mentions this leniency. According to the Tosafot, the danger refers to the persecutions of the Jews of Babylon by the ruling of the Persians for lighting candles mentioned in Shabbat 45a. Needless to say, there have been countless other periods of persecution in Jewish history. So is it limited to that example? Or can we say one of these other examples is on the same level? So that qualifies as danger. What if it's somebody said something mean about Jews on Twitter? Am I a victim of anti-Semitism because somebody said something mean? Am I now in danger of reading something that I don't want to hear? Does that qualify? Is that on the same level as this persecution mentioned? Let's see what it says. We're in the commentary here in the Mishneh Torah. It is, however, significant that even in times when there was no obvious danger, the custom has been to light the Hanukkah candles inside our homes. Even in the present day, when there is little danger of persecution in most places where Jews are located, it is not customary to light the candles at the entrance to the home in most communities. So there is no necessity. The next commentary here. It is no necessity to light near a doorway. The Ramah states it's preferable that the Hanukkah lights be positioned near a doorway. So again, if you're on your table where nobody even sees it, it's just you and your family doing it, that's acceptable. So you don't even have to invite danger that you don't see present. Okay, a Hanukkah lamp that was kindled by a deaf, mute, mentally incapable person, a minor, or a Gentile is of no consequence. And by no consequence means they're not fulfilling the obligation for anybody because they are exempt. They are not, people with this status do not have the obligation. So they're not fulfilling an obligation that they're not obligated to fulfill. It must be kindled by a person who is obligated to light it. Should the Hanukkah lamp be kindled inside and then taken and placed at the entrance of one's home while it's still burning, it does not fulfill the obligation. One must light it in its place. Again, I think this is where I skipped ahead and showed you the opinions that it can be moved. It just can't be lit in the wrong place. If one held a candle and stood at one place, it's of no consequence, since an observer will say he's standing there for his own purpose. When a lamp was burning throughout the entire Sabbath day, one may extinguish the light, recite the blessings for the mitzvah, and relight the lamp. Kindling the lamp fulfills the mitzvah and not placing it down. It is permissible to light one Hanukkah candle from another Hanukkah candle. Okay, look at this one. When a courtyard has two entrances from two different directions, it requires two Hanukkah lamps. Does anybody comply with it? Does anybody take them out to every entrance of their apartment complex? Maybe. I've never seen anyone do that. I've seen everyone posking just like the Ramah. They do it inside. They don't even set it outside. Were one to light at only one entrance, the passerby from the other direction might say a Hanukkah light had not been placed down. If, however, two entrances to a courtyard are located at the same side, it's sufficient to light only one at one of them. But if you have an entrance on both sides, this says you should have one at each. A guest at another person's home whose family kindles the Hanukkah lights for him at his home need not kindle Hanukkah lights in the home where he is temporarily lodging. If, however, he has no home in which Hanukkah lights are being kindled, he is required to light in the place where he is lodging. He should share in the oil used by the owner of his lodgings. If he is staying in a private dwelling, he is required to light in the place where he is staying, even though Hanukkah lights are being kindled for him at home, because of the impression created in the midst of the passerby. So here you can see it doesn't have to be the wax candles. This is a newer invention today that you see with the box. You used to be able to use any kind of candle other than a braided one because that's a torch, but like the birthday candles or the oil type of candles, like the floating ones, you can use those too. That's what I showed you a picture of. You can have the oil with the wicks floating around. Okay, the mitzvah of kindling Hanukkah lamps is very dear. A person should be very careful in its observance to publicize the miracle and thus increase our praise of God and our expression of thanks for the miracles which he wrought on our behalf. Even if a person, so this is why, should we be exempting women? They're exempt from the positive time-bound mitzvah, but there are those who say they're, because of the specific role that women played, they are exempt from that rule that exempts them from it, and they should be participating in this. Rambam holds this on a very high level. Look at what he says. Even if a person has no resources for food except what he receives from charity, he should pawn or sell his garments and purchase oil and lamps to kindle them in fulfillment of the mitzvah. Is this where there's a commentary here that I wanted to read, which demonstrates how much he elevates some of these things that the rabbis ordained. Don't tell me I didn't highlight it. Either I highlighted where that was in the commentary and I skipped over it, or I didn't highlight that one. So I'm not gonna take too much time looking for it. Anyway, he explains the ones ordained by the sages. Like the washing the hand before prayer and bread was one of them. This is one of them. What was the other ones? There was four of them. I don't know. We'll find it later. I don't want to sit here for 5 minutes being silent while I look for it. Okay, when a person only has a single peruta, this was the smallest Roman coin. Today, the commentary says that this is worth about 5 to 10 cents of modern day currency. He's required to fulfill both mitzvot of sanctifying the Sabbath day and lighting the Hanukkah lamp. He should give precedence to purchasing oil and kindle the Hanukkah lamp over purchasing wine to recite Kiddush. Since both of these mitzvot are rabbinic in origin, it is preferable to give precedence to the kindling of the Hanukkah lamp, for it commemorates the miracle. And then 14. I feel like this is where it would be in the commentary. There's on one of these two halachot. That could be the problem. Oh, real quick.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
what does it say?
What does what say?
This.
Well, you make you guys big again. Demonstrating my tech ignorance here. Okay. Expand fully. Okay, there you go. Tefillin.
Okay.
So tefillin bag.
All right.
Make sure somebody
I
didn't
was
deceive you and sell you something.
I was switching over to filling bags. I've got a, because when I ordered my Tallit, I got a matching to filling bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that one's got your
So
name on it. The bigger one's got
right,
yeah.
right.
All right, so if you can see the picture here, that's where it's showing you literally outside the door with the mezuzah on the opposite side. But as we mentioned, you're probably not going to be putting it outside of your door.
I have a question on this. I mean, I live in an apartment building. In
Yeah.
front of the door, in my case, would be in the hall. I mean, it could burn down. That's like dangerous, but I wouldn't mind in my house.
Yeah, so don't put it outside your door. And this is why I was mentioning entrances to the apartments and like the courtyard. So passers-by would see at the entrance to the apartment. Your apartment could be on the other side, but it's showing that anyone passes by knows that you're in one of these apartments. And again, I think this is why they kind of changed it to say that now that we live among non-Jews, we're not in the land where everybody's Jewish and everybody's doing this. So this is why you do it inside. And this is why the Ramah says it's about your family, because all your neighbors in the apartment complex might not be Jewish. So you might not want to be publicizing it. So it's okay to just do it inside the apartment. But what most people do is they put it at the window. So your entrance to your apartment is like a hallway. So your window is probably on the opposite side to where everybody could see it, hopefully. Unless your apartment, you're backed up against some woods or something. So yeah, usually you want to put it like in a window wherever the most amount of people can see it if it's safe to do so.
Yeah, but this is actually even less safe because people exactly know in which apartment you live. Front door, if you have more people around you, like a little Chanukah party or something, or family or friends over, makes more sense to me because, like, here we have 10 families, I think, living here. Anyone could be the Jew. I mean, everyone in my house knows I'm Jewish, but I don't care. But it doesn't make sense to put it in the window where it's literally your apartment.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense to do that. That way they know it's you. Yeah. That's what you're saying, right? You want to put it in the window so everyone can see that it's your apartment?
I did this last year, but now I'm thinking about because on Friday I have some friends over, Jewish and non-Jewish, if we don't do this outside, because Chanukah is like the festival of resistance against people who wanted to raise us. And I think in these days, it might be like an actual act of resistance. And I think we should resist.
Yeah, you should. Although it's worth noting they didn't want to wipe us out. They just wanted to do away with the religious practice.
Yeah, which technically is the same. If you take away our Torah, we are done too.
Yes. So for me personally, Hanukkah is not one of my favorite holidays. I liked it when my son was young. We would play dreidel and go to the Hanukkah parties. So not that it's a children's holiday or anything, but that was fun. But for me now that he's an adult, it's pretty much just like for what you say. It's displaying Jewish pride. We're here. We haven't gone anywhere. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm publicizing it. Um, so that's why we do it. I don't consider it resistance because I'm not in a place where I'm being oppressed. I just view it as
Well, you already said that you were exactly where you live, you feel comfortable. I have Hamas friendly people around me, so for me, it feels like.
definitely don't put yourself in any danger. But
Yeah, for sure not. I'm just considering it.
yeah, I agree with what you're saying though. I think it should be publicized. All right, somewhere in here, I wanted to show you these four. Um, wonder if it's one of those clothes. All right, one more second to find this. I wondered if maybe I didn't see it in the commentary of the Mishneh Torah. Maybe I found it in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Priority of the Sabbath candles, honor of Shabbat. All right, so I don't know where it is. It might be in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch that I found it. I thought it was in Mishneh Torah, but must be in the Kitzur because you would think I would have highlighted it like I highlighted the other interesting things that I found. All right, where were we? 13, 14. When a person has only a single pruta, yeah, we read this one. Okay, if a person has the opportunity to fulfill only one of two mitzvot, lighting a lamp for one's home, which is the Sabbath candles, or lighting a Hanukkah lamp, or alternatively lighting a lamp for one's home, or reciting Kiddush, the lamp for one's home receives priority since it generates peace within the home. So this is the Shabbat candles, and that was more of a thing back in this time when we didn't have electricity. You kind of had to have those candles going because you couldn't see. And you have to enjoy Shabbat. So when the sun goes down, Shabbat comes upon us, you have to have light. So that's why we like the Shabbat candles. So that's why it's giving you that's part of the peace in the home. Not stumbling around, tripping over things and hurting yourself on Shabbat. So that's where it gives you the peace in the home. Peace is of primary importance as reflected by the mitzvah requiring God's name to be blotted out to create peace between a husband and his wife. Peace is great, for the entire Torah was given to bring about peace within the world. As Proverbs states, its ways are pleasant and all its paths are peace. Which is why we should be bringing this to the whole world, and they should be partaking in it, not creating a dividing line between us and them. Blessed be the merciful who grants us assistance. This concludes the third book. Okay, so that is the 2 chapters on Hanukkah in the Mishneh Torah. All right, now that I've remained so silent while I was looking for something that I wanted to show you, let me see if I could find it here. I did highlight a couple things. It's already been long enough. I don't want to go through all of this, what's in the Kitzur, like I did this morning. During the era of the second Beit HaMikdash, when the Greek kingdom was in power, they imposed evil decrees against the Jewish people designed to put an end to their religion, not an end to the people. They did not want to exterminate us. They wanted to put an end to the religion. Like I'm going to point it out, it's kind of one and the same. Who are we if we don't have our religion? But people say, oh, people just want to exterminate us. That was not the case. They did allow us to live. Fasting is not permitted on Hanukkah. Even the things like latkes is considered like a feast because you're doing it for the mitzvah. Now, since we live among non-Jews, we light the menorah in the house. If you light a menorah of earthenware after you light it one night, it deteriorates and you should not light it again the following night because it is repulsive. Therefore, you should possess a beautiful menorah made of metal. If you can afford it, you should buy a silver menorah in order to adorn the mitzvah. Good question for Chabad. They always have the Hanukkah lighting every year with the big golden menorah. Why aren't we using a silver one? Let's highlight here. Okay, on the first night, again, we're in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. On the first night, you recite these barachot when lighting the menorah. Lehadlik ner shel Hanukkah, she'asa nisim, who has performed the miracles, and the Shehekianu. On other nights, you do not say the Shehekianu, only the first night. After you say the barachot, you kindle one light, and while kindling the others, you say these lights. A convert to Judaism, you need to be specifically called out here. We're talking to you converts, not you native borns. A convert to Judaism should say, who has performed the miracles for Israel. But if he said, for our forefathers, he has fulfilled his obligation. Okay, according to the Kitzur, according to our custom, the order of lighting the menorah is as follows. On the first night, you kindle the light facing your right hand. On the second night, you add one to the left of the previous night, of the previous light. Similarly, on each subsequent night, you add one light to the left. So you're loading it from right to left. I don't know if that's backwards on the screen there, but you're loading it from right to left. The light that is added is always kindled first, and you continue writing towards the light. So you load from right to left, but you light from left to right. Again, the first sentence here says, according to our custom, which is not the only custom. So that's the popular one. Okay. We went
Oh
over.
yeah. You light the last one that you added,
Right.
and then go that way to the first one that you added.
So we went over, correct. We went over the non-valid thing. If they were already burning and you placed them in their place, they are not valid. Again, take this as ideal and less than ideal. Similarly, if when you lit them, they did not have the required amount of oil, and afterwards you added oil, it is of no avail. Similarly, if you set the menorah in a place where the wind is blowing and the lights are bound to be extinguished, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah. I think if I set it outside my doorway, I expect it's going to be extinguished. and you must light them again. But you should not say a baracha. But if you put them in the proper place and they were extinguished by accident, you have fulfilled the mitzvah. Well, according to the halakha, the proper place is outside where the wind is blowing. But again, all the minhagim says we light them inside. So if they go out accidentally inside, you don't need to worry about it. Nevertheless, it's customary to light them again. It's a custom to be strict and not to rekindle an extinguished light with another Hanukkah light, but you should try to light it with the shamash, the helper candle, or with some other candle. Okay. Did I highlight anything else in here? Women are obligated to kindle the Hanukkah lights. Because they were involved in a miracle of Hanukkah, a woman may light the menorah on behalf of her entire family. So remember, we already had everyone lighting them. We had the man lighting them for everyone. We had the man lighting one, which included everyone. Now we have the woman lighting for everyone. How about the children? A child who has reached the age to be trained for mitzvot must also light the menorah. If a blind person can become someone's partner by contributing towards buying the Hanukkah lights, fulfilling his obligation through his partner's lighting, that would be best. If he has a wife, she should light the menorah for him. But if he has no wife and lives by himself, so that he cannot become anyone's partner, he should light it with someone's assistance. This applies even to people who lights at the menorah in the synagogue. You should also light it at home. We all understand it's 8 days. So for Shabbat, you can't light until Shabbat is over. And for Havdalah, do Havdalah before you light the candles on Motzi Shabbat. Don't use the Hanukkah lights for anything else. Not now that we have electricity, it's not that you would, but they're specific for publicizing the miracle. If you need light for anything else, you turn on a light switch. But back in the days when you had other candles, that's what you would use to inspect anything else. And this talks about Hallel, synagogue services. And that's pretty much it for the Kitzur. Okay, that's bothered me. I want to know, where did I find that? The 4 items that he said that he gives such a high level to. The Hanukkah candles and the Megillah. That's why it's one section in the Mishneh Torah is one. Washing your hands before bread and prayer is the second one. What are the other 2? This is bothering me that I don't remember it. I know it's in there somewhere. I've got to find it.
The Kiddush and the Chamotzi.
I feel like it's not in the actual text. It's in the commentary, quoting where he mentions it somewhere else in Mishneh Torah. All right. I'll stop the recording now while I look for this. If I find it, then I'll put it in the comment if we make this video public. I'll list what those 4 are.